Hey there again, this is Brian.
What does it take to create a vibrant, thriving life? First, the sad news is that Thoreau was right. Most people are leading quiet lives of desperation, lacking in meaning, fulfillment, and vitality. But we choose more. We choose to create extraordinary lives. And the Art of Vibrant Living show entertains you with inspiration, empowerment, and education to create your life into a masterpiece. It's time. Let's vibe up. Holy moly, y'all. Today is a beautiful, amazing, awesome day because it is show day. It's the day of the Art of Vibrant Living show. I'm your host, Daniel Aaron, and I'm so excited for this show in particular today because we've got an amazing guest, Jay Bradley. We got something really powerful in common that is guaranteed to make a huge difference in your life. So I'll say more about Jay in a moment. You'll get to meet him, ask him questions. This is a live show, so we are excited for it. And for those of y'all that are watching by rebroadcast, come join us live next time. Then you can be part of the show as well. So the show is all about vibrant living. And that is not something accidental. I grew up fat, shy, and depressed. It took a lot of work for me to overcome all that conditioning in different ways. And so what we do on this show is say, well, how do you create a vibrant, thriving life? And it takes inspiration, it takes education and empowerment. And that's exactly what today's show is all about, is empowerment. And incredible guest here, Jay Bradley, is a man who has been on a mission with one of the most powerful, the most powerful healing and transformative modality that I have ever found in 30 years of my obsession with personal and spiritual growth. And that is breathing, and a specific kind of breathing. Better, though, is he is somebody who, in a way like me, came from a place where he was not thriving as a youngster, and he overcame so much. I'll let him share more about what that is as he likes, but he's overcome so much. So he is the real deal in terms of sharing what it takes to thrive, what it takes to overcome, what it takes to create a vibrant, thriving life. So y'all, welcome with me, the wonderful and amazing Jay Bradley. Welcome to the show, Mr. J.
Thank you for that awesome intro. I'm honored to be here, Daniel. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, well, it's so good to have you with us. And, I got so many questions I want to ask you that we've only got a little bit of time, and your brilliance and depth goes on and on. Though, before I get into it, to get a little bit of context for our viewers and listeners, would you be up for sharing just a little bit about, how you got to this point? What got you into breathwork specifically, and how you became the dude that you are now?
The dude that I am, yeah. Let's see. Well, you said you were fat, shy, and depressed. I had one of those for sure. I had the depressed piece. I laugh about it now, but yeah, struggling with some anxiety and depression from as far back as I can remember as a kid. Being bullied, even physically, bullied growing up. That was really difficult in a small town in Canada. So my mission just started. It started early. It started with the questions like, how can I feel better? I know I deserve to feel better than this, and what can I do? And so that's pretty much where my mission started. I think it was, certainly I started to take care of my physical health first, because I grew up with a lot of illness, allergies, earaches, a lot of chronic infections. So working out was the first piece. Around 13 years old, I became passionate about my physical fitness, my body. And then around 20 years old began like more of the self-help spiritual piece. And I started to sort of devour these self-help spiritual books, personal growth books. And that's kind of where the journey began. career-wise, I've done a lot of things in that realm: massage therapy, Reiki, hypnosis, wellness and health coaching, fitness trainer. And then over the last 8 years, this modality of breathwork sort of re-entered my life at a small men's group. And it was just in that moment I realized very clearly that this was sort of the breakthrough that I was looking for, the missing piece that I felt could really permanently shift me and move me in a whole new direction. And so I committed it pretty much my whole
about that, because I know for me, and I think we talked about this when we first met, right? Because we're like both so into this breath modality, and it was so powerful for both of us. And I remember like crystal clear the first experience I had with it, where I didn't know anything about it. Somebody just said, "Oh, you should go to this thing. It's really great. It's intense." I was like, "Oh, okay, sure." And I was blown away. Such an amazingly powerful experience. Like I described it as a peak experience, something I had never had in a methodical way. I'd had some, but they were kind of random. So what was that first experience for you? Why was it so impactful, and why did it like hook you into it so deeply?
Because it reached all the levels for me. One session, imagine one session like helping me physically, emotionally, and spiritually. What do I mean by that? I mean, first of all, physically, I remember getting really, really hot and like soaked. I was sweating. And then near the end, I was freezing and shivering. So my body was reacting. But I also felt a ton of emotion, a lot of release, a lot of crying, a lot of sobbing, some anger and a mix of grief showed up. Like it was amazing to process through so many emotions in such a short period of time, just from the breath. And then also on a deeper level, I started to feel pulsating and energy moving in my body. And I knew from that moment, like I sensed that I was releasing some really, really deep stuff that was sitting in some of these energy points or chakras. And it felt like a spinning sensation and an opening and a balancing. So there was a lot that took place in one session. And I just remember thinking, if this can happen in one session, can you imagine if I did this regularly or even daily for a little while and see what happens? So yeah, a lot all in once.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I remember, well, I'm curious for your take on this, because I remember my teacher early on in the process saying, this is vibrational medicine, right? And I was like, I was new to that world at that point, but it was for me, I'd already developed like an allergy to new age stuff. Like I had experienced so much of this new age stuff that to me just seemed a little flaky, and a lot of people spouting certain words, but they weren't really living it. So she said, and she looked a little new agey to me at the time. I had some judgment, which I quickly got over because I learned like how amazing and powerful she was. But when she said it's vibrational medicine, I was like, don't say that. That cheapens it somehow. That sounds new. Now I have like a totally different feeling on that because I really understand what she meant. I didn't understand it then. But, and so you mentioned in your first experience, like it came on so many different levels for you. How do you associate that in terms of vibrational medicine? What does that make any sense to you, or does it sound weird to you, or what do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm super practical too. And I kind of moved away from some of the woo woo because, I was like, I just want to live in this world and I want to learn how to live in this physical world. Right. First of all, that's why I love breathwork, because it's so practical. It takes you to kind of this woo woo place, but it's super practical. And it's funny because I call it spiritual CrossFit. So I like that too, right? Because it is a workout. People don't realize like you're engaged, you're really working at the breath, but it takes you to this kind of spiritual, emotional place. But vibrational medicine, I love that word medicine because it's being used a lot now. Plant medicine, vibrational medicine makes a lot of sense because we're stuck in a dense vibration, a lot of us. And we're trying so hard in the physical world to like move through it, but it's really, really difficult. And breath does raise your vibration. It does blast you through some of those blocks. And so I like that term, vibrational medicine. Makes sense.
Nice. Cool. Thank you. Yeah. Well, and it's like, we've changed a lot since those days too, right? Because I got into it in the 90s. And at that point, vibrational, just the word vibration sounded in and of itself kind of like new agey, right?
Yeah.
But now, right, we've got quantum physics is
Yeah.
like almost a known conversation in the popular world. So what well, let me switch this, because we were talking about this a little bit earlier, before we got into the show. And how do you feel like, because I'm sorry, here comes the question. Some people will say
Yeah.
that breath work is really about personal development or spiritual development. And
Mhm.
what's your sense in terms of the relationship between that stuff, personal development, spiritual development, and the quality of one's life? Like, is it necessary? Is it important? Does the presence of it or the absence of it make a difference in people's lives? And if so, how?
Right. It's a good question. Look, I believe that we all deserve to live a life that feels good most of the time, right? We're human. I'm not sure we're going to get there 100%, but even I say even 75 or 80% of the time, if we could just feel good. And if we're not feeling good most of the time, then there's, I think, some work to be done, right?
Hmm.
Because I think our natural state is this space of feeling good. And when I say feeling good, just being fulfilled and having energy and vitality and energy moving through us. So breath work, again, it seems to reach these levels that other things cannot reach. And this is sounding woo-woo, right, for some people, but literally we have ancestral energy that we carry in our DNA, and that is becoming even more science now. So day to day, we're not going to understand or recognize what these patterns are we're carrying from our ancestors. But when we breathe, something happens, something magical, where we can touch this energy and we can start to sense the energy that's under the surface. And often it is like the family stories, the old beliefs, the things we picked up from childhood, any of those blocks, resistance, or barriers that sit within us. This is why I love the breath, because when we can just commit to a practice, laying down, doing the breath, we're able to just acknowledge, feel, and move through these patterns. So I would say there is definitely no better practice if we want to become well or balanced again, spiritually, vibrationally, emotionally, and just the thing I say, it reminds us who we really are. Right? We forget. We lay down and breathe, and we're like, oh my God, this is what it's like to feel good. I forgot. And I think the more we remember, the more we stay in that place, the more habitual it becomes. Most of us are addicted to feeling bad, right? Depression. It becomes easier to just be depressed or to be anxious because that's what we know. But eventually we can try on a new space. So
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm with you. And so that begs a question to me then, and this might, I don't know, I'm curious what this will elicit for you. It might be a challenging question in some way. I think not for you though, because of how I know you. When you say it reminds us of who we are or who we really are,
mm-hmm.
Who are we?
Who are we? Yeah. Who are we? Good question. Well, look, I'm a big believer in we are spiritual beings. Wayne Dyer, right? Spiritual beings having a human experience, whatever that means to people. We're more than this physical body, for sure, right? We are energy, we're vibration, and we get caught up in the density of our physical life, our physical body, making money, survival, and it's really easy to just forget this missing piece of the heart, the love, the energy, the healing. And so I don't know, who we really are is these spiritual light beings who have great deal of love, compassion, forgiveness, gratitude, and that is more our natural state. I think most of us have gotten off track, and very few modalities can help you snap back so quickly than breath work.
Completely agreed. And yeah, spiritual beings in a human experience. And the way I think of it often is like, why is that so important, or why are spiritual practices and breath like is the ultimate spiritual practice, right? Because literally inspire the bringing
Yeah.
in of, I know you know this, but not everybody does, like the word itself, inspire, in spirit, breathe in, it's all the same word, you know, and it's like breath is what makes us alive. It's the measure of life. So of course it's the ultimate spiritual practice. And the way I often think of it is like, if we are spirit in a human body, well, the human body part, there's not much we got to do to be aware of that, because it's like literally in our face. Like it's, you know, it's the physical world is so present to us all the time, but it's easy to forget about the spirit part, right? And it's like, and we could go our whole lives without even thinking about our breath. That's part of what amazes me too, right? Like, or at any time be conscious of it. Same with spirit. So I love what you say, like, to remind us or bring us back to the truth of who we are spiritually, that part that we can forget about. Now, it occurred to me that we might be right now like two fish in a fishbowl here, because we're talking about breath, and we know what we're talking about, but other people might be listening and saying like, well,
Yeah.
I'm breathing all the time. What are you two on about over here anyway? So how, you know, what does it mean for you when you work for yourself or when you work with people? I know you've worked with thousands of people now. How do you get them to breathe? What's the technique or the system, or how do they breathe?
Yeah, well, the term breath work is used a lot now, right? It's becoming the new meditation, the new yoga, and thank God. It's amazing, such a blessing. And I want to say that there are hundreds of styles, hundreds of brand names, trademarks of different styles of breath. But I always say there's really only a few ways we can breathe, right? We're breathing either in our mouth, in and out of our mouth, in and out of our nose, in and out of the belly, in and out of the chest. I mean, those are, unless there's, like I say, other orifices you're breathing out of. So, and then different styles, all based on pranayama, by the way, which is thousands of years old. Everything is based on pranayama. But so the breath that I focus on, because I find it to be the most powerful, is this 3-part circular breath, or a conscious connected breath. I like to breathe in and out of the mouth because it's just easier for most people to take in air through the mouth for a short period of time. And then the breath I teach is inhaling in the belly first, and then inhaling into the chest and then out. So it's like a belly inhale into the chest and out in the belly. Why I love this 3-part circular breath is it opens up some of these stuck energy points in the lower chakras, or energy points in our body. Also opens up some of these upper ones too, from the heart upward. And so most of us are locked up. We have stuck energy or stress or emotion somewhere in our body. This breath helps to open up, to make space to process some of these stuck emotions or these stresses that we hold on to. And I'm a big believer that, like, dis-ease or illness is even, a lot of it has an emotional component underneath it. So if we can recognize where these blockages are first, energetically, I often feel that we can get physically well also. Now, what about you? You do transformational breath, right? Is that more belly focused?
Yeah, and I'm totally with you. It's such like renaissance. I don't know. It's such an amazing time that breath has become so mainstream and popular now. And I'm sure what Wim Hof has done, you know, and his popularity has increased it in ways. But maybe, and I think you're pointing to this too, it's like maybe because things are so out of balance and messed up in the world in different ways, like as humanity, like we need something really powerful now. I got just the ticket for you. Here it is. It was hidden in plain sight, really easy. It's just breath. So yeah, thank goodness that it's so popular now. And also there are so many different styles, and I'm sure you get this too. I get it all the time, like, well, what about this kind? And what about this kind? And what about this kind? I'm like, dude, any kind of breathing where you become more conscious of your breath, in my book, that's thumbs up. Now, like different types of breathing have different intentions. They have different techniques, and they all have their flavors to them. But yeah, for us with transformation, and I've tried, you know, dozens literally of kinds of breathing over the years, but I've stayed with transformational breath because for me it works really well. And I think your training must have been influenced in some way by it, because so much of what you share is really aligned with what I learn and teach as well. And yeah, our experience is if you breathe down into the belly, right, which I gotta say, the anatomy physiology freak in me says like, hey, there's no lungs in the belly. So please hear me, y'all. What that means is that breathing into the lungs using the diaphragm, it pushes the abdomen down, the belly expands. That's what we mean. But yeah, when we do that, then it opens up the whole respiratory system, right? And if we start down there and really get that diaphragmatic breathing going, sooner or later, the rest of the apparatus, the human, is going to open up.
Love that.
So yeah, I'm with you on that, and it's similar too for us with transformational breath. The intention, and it's great. Everybody has their own intention each time. Like, hey, I'm breathing for this, and I love the name of your business and your focus with breath is BreatheOnIt. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And as I recall, and tell me if this is accurate, the reason you came up with that name is people are like, well, I'm feeling stuck with this, or I don't know what to do about this. And you're like, well, breathe on it,
That's it.
And I think of that.
Sleep on it, meditate on it.
Yeah. Well, and the part of it, to connect to earlier, what we were talking about earlier, part of what I think is great about that is because, as we were saying, breath is such a rapid way to increase our vibration, our frequency, our state of being. And haven't we all had the experience where like, oh man, I don't know, and this is a problem, and I don't know what to do about this, and been struggling with this, and then something happens, we shift our state, our vibration goes up, we get more energy, and we're like, oh, I know exactly what to do about that now, right?
Yes, that's right. Most of us spend a lot of time in our heads, which has a place in our life, right? Some of the logic and sensible stuff, but mostly it's just trouble. Honestly, it's trouble. At least for me, I get in trouble when I'm up here. And I always say shallow breath, shallow life. So when we talk about vibration, I'm just talking about opening up and deepening, right? Deepening our experience. And how do we do that? Deepening the breath, like you said, breathing into the belly, into the diaphragms. It's not taking shallow, breaths up here, but really engaging, and it can solve so many challenges. And what I say is, it gets us out of our heads and into our hearts, into our bodies, into our energy. And honestly, I think that's the world we're becoming now needs that, especially for men in the world, right? We've had enough of this. We need to sink in deeper and make decisions from our intuition, from our heart, and from a place of gentleness. And the only way to get there is to get out of here.
Yeah, hallelujah. Well said. Yeah, and maybe that connects to like, yeah, this is what we need for humanity to evolve, right? To save the ship, it's going down, right? We need to get in our hearts at this point. So, which also relates to what we were just talking about. I think of everybody knows the quotation from Einstein, right? Which is, you can't solve a problem by the same level of consciousness that created it. So that's, to me, another way of looking at breathe on it is like, you got an issue, you got a problem, change the level of consciousness through breath. It's the fastest way of doing that. So
yes,
go ahead. You're gonna
say. I was gonna say, I worked with so many clients and students all over the world, and it doesn't matter what their issues are. We all have issues. We all have recurring issues, like at least one or two areas of our life that don't work, whether it's love, relationships, money's a big one, career, health, and whatever it is, whatever we're looking for answers for, or clarity, laying down and breathing on it will absolutely, I promise you, will give you the clarity you need, the answers you need, the what I call downloads, right? The visuals, or the direction that you need. So especially when we're feeling stuck, is when we need it the most. Just to lay down, breathe, and just make space for the intuition or the guidance to come through, whatever that guidance is for people, right? Sometimes it's God, universe, angels, guides. Maybe people don't believe in any of that, but there is an energy that's bigger than us that's trying to direct us. So opening up to that is a nice, healthy thing to do for ourselves.
Absolutely. It's huge. It's what's most important in our world, and that remembering who we are. It's like, everything's easy from there, right? Like we have the answers we need when we remember the truth of who we are. Right?
Yeah, and
So
it's hard to remember. I mean, you've been doing this work. We've been doing this work for decades, and it's still, we're human. So I need to lay down and breathe regularly to remember. It does get easier. We have the tools, and I'm able to snap in out of it or into a better space more easily. But we do need consistent uh, tools and work to stay there.
yeah, I'm really glad you said that, Jay, because this is something I've been encountering a bunch lately, and I'm curious if you've had this experience too. Working with clients, a couple of my clients recently said, like, I've been doing this work for a long time, and I they didn't say these exact words, but it was the meaning is like, I shouldn't have to do this kind of stuff. Like I've done it, and you know again, if we go back to the thing like spirit and human, well, the human part, which is oriented towards survival, it exerts a strong influence all the time. It's just, it's biological, it's hardwired. And I heard this great expression for it the other day, like the importance of creating ourselves or raising our vibration or remembering who we are on a daily basis is because it's like there's this constant negative gravity or this force that's like pulling us back from the truth of who we are, and whether that's marketing from somebody who wants our dollars or whether that's, just old patterns that we had in our life, things we learned when we were kids or, whatever, or just going asleep and waking up and in a funk. And it's like, I'm back here.
Mm-hmm.
The practice is what brings me back to spirit, to the truth of who I am. Does that make sense to you? Have you had that experience?
No, I laugh because I say that often. It's like I've done decades of work. Why am I still feeling this? And of course, if we really are truthful with ourselves, the victim part of ourselves wants to think we're still in the same place. We're light years ahead from where we were. And the truth is, yes, we're still experiencing some of these challenges, right? But wow, look at the progress. So yes, I think I've lived in the illusion for a long time. And I think probably maybe some of us in the self-help world think we're going to just reach a place of nirvana where everything is gone, all the bad stuff. I'm laughing because like I lived with this belief, right? I'm just got a little more work to do. And unfortunately, I don't know that, again, we'll be there 100% of the time in this physical reality. But I know for a fact from personal experience that we can be there a lot of the time. And so maybe we can lower our expectations just a bit, right? You know what I mean? And be like, hey, look at where I've come.
Well, I mean, you pointed to, I think, really key pieces in there that are worth reiterating and amplifying. I got a new perspective on what you're describing, actually from a business book not long ago. Let me remember the name of the book. Dan Sullivan, Benjamin Hardy, and the book is something to do with entrepreneurship, and it'll come back to me. But the principle that they put forward, and it applies to entrepreneurs, but it applies to all of us because we're all growing towards something. Like entrepreneurs are consciously growing towards something in their business. They have these ideas, right? You've had that experience. But as humans, we're also growing toward just our evolution, right? We're becoming more. And it's so easy for us to look at what I haven't done yet, what I haven't created with my business yet, or how I haven't evolved, or the thing that I haven't solved in my life yet, the whatever it is that I don't have yet. And so we're measuring ourselves against some future idealistic thing, when if we actually measured ourselves back here a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, a decade ago, I'd be like, holy moly, I'm awesome. But when we measure out here, we're like, I suck, I'm no good, life is so hard. But it's just a matter of like measuring in the wrong direction, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. You reminded me of that in a recent call we had, actually. And I think as entrepreneurs, as success-driven people, it's normal or natural for us to be like, okay, what's next? And it can be dangerous territory. Actually, my new therapist yesterday said something. She said, reality's here, expectations are here, and the suffering is all in between. And I've never heard it said that way. And I loved it because it's like, yes, it's like, that's where we compare. That's where we say, God, look how I haven't done very much. So, I think it's great to have dreams and visions for our life and intentions and goals. But then somehow we have to bring ourselves back to like, okay, I've set those, I've envisioned, now get back to this moment and let it go. Because when we're too attached, it can be really difficult. We're going to be very hard on ourselves.
Yeah, we have amazing capacity as humans to beat ourselves up.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you've pointed to this a couple times, so I want to reiterate it too. It's brilliant, which is that concept. You use different words, but the concept that we think we shouldn't have problems, or that we should already be there, or we shouldn't have to do more work. The reframing on that is so valuable. I had a cool experience years ago with Norman Vincent Peale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Famous philosopher, wrote the book the Power of Positive Thinking, right? He was one of the early sort of new age positive psychology guys before psychology was a thing. Well, I actually had his son as a college professor. That's how I got to learn about him. But he was an amazing man, Norman Vincent Peale, and he was like lecturing, giving seminars, working with people into his 80s. And someone interviewed him and said, Dr. Peale, why are you still doing this? And he looked at the interviewer like, what a silly question. He's like, because people are still suffering, right? Yeah. And part of what he said is the biggest problem you have, speaking to all of us, is you think you shouldn't have any problems, right? So the reframing of our problems as, well, these are always going to be there. That's the nature of life. And we could get into the semantics of problems, opportunities, challenges, all that, and there's worthiness to that. But if we just think of like the purpose of life is to grow, how do we grow? Well, when we get uncomfortable, when we have problems. So if the problems be like, okay, like the way I thought of this years ago, I was like shocked that I never thought of it. I was working with a health coach, and he's like, all right, we're going to go do an obstacle course. I was like, cool. All right, an obstacle course. And I was like, well, in my life, when I get an obstacle, I'm like, oh man, that's hard. And I don't want to deal with that. I'm like, I'm literally going to an obstacle course on purpose right now to get myself stronger. Why was I not able to look at life as, oh, these are the obstacles to make me stronger? It's like,
yes, it's a great reframe. It's so important. I mean, you look at we're always stronger. We've always evolved even in relationships, right? You go through confrontation, you go through something. And if you can actually communicate and move through it, my God, the connection is so much deeper afterward, right? So yeah, it's a good reframe.
All right, well, let's switch gears a little, Jay, because I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that you, like me, in the world of transformational breath, have had some odd experiences, right? Because I don't know how it's been for you. Like, we've never literally worked together. We haven't met in person yet. Though, like, I've had so many bizarre experiences with clients, even myself, like, really like out there things that I wouldn't have been able to believe before. And even like now I feel like when crazy stuff happens in life, part of why I'm way less reactive, I'm like, oh, okay, that's going on, is because like, well, I've seen some strange things happen. So in your work with clients or with yourself, do you have any experiences that were unusual or notable?
We're supposed to not scare people away from breathwork, right? Because some of these are a little freaky. Yeah, I have a few stories. I mean, certainly the one that comes to mind right now is, I mean, call it whatever we want. Like, but a healing experience where one of my clients had cysts, fibroid cysts, and was told she needed surgery. We did one breathwork session around this issue, this topic. We did some, guided meditation work and visualization. And then, a few days later, she went for a follow-up and they were completely gone. And not only gone, but they said, well, there's not even any scar tissue where these cysts were. So we're really confused how this happened. Now, I'd love to take all the credit for this, but she was a very willing participant, and her belief was very strong that we could literally heal her body. So that's pretty miraculous. I've had somebody talk in different languages, and after the session, I asked them if they spoke different languages, and they're like, no. They were talking in some sort of tongues, which kind of was interesting to me. But, a lot of times this happens. I like to bring in some Ho'oponopono, which you probably know in Hawaii is this beautiful forgiveness practice. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me and thank you. We send these words out to other people, and often clients of mine have not talked to a member of their family for years, or friends, and literally we come out of the session and I've seen this many times, they have a text or a phone call from that person. Like, I can't tell you how many times this has happened, just from releasing, forgiving, sending love to that person. So this is the power of energy. This is like, somehow, I got goosebumps all over, right? Somehow that person felt the shift by us doing the work and shifting our energy and our vibration. So those are a few pretty cool stories about the power of breath and the power of belief.
It's so powerful. And part of what you do, just by sharing some of that stuff, like, is help people see what is possible.
Yeah.
And I've had just like, the reason I keep doing breath work with people is like, it's every time I do it, it's like half or 3/4 of the people are like wide-eyed, like, oh my goodness. Literally every time, at least one, usually several people say, that was the most powerful experience I've had in my life. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I think to myself, oh, gosh, all I did was say, okay, breathe, keep breathing.
Yeah.
It's like, it's that simple, yet so powerful. So I know we've got a cool gift from you coming up that will help people with breathing. Shocker. Mm-hmm. What would you say, though, like, for people listening, watching live or by replay, that say, like, okay, you guys, I get it. You're really into this breath thing. I think it's probably cool. Well, how do they get into it? What do they do? What do you tell people?
Yeah, well, I mean, luckily it's becoming more and more popular, and by the way, I do feel it's just as powerful in person or virtually. So finding somebody who resonates with you, who's teaching breath, would be the first step, and just trying it out, and maybe trying numerous people, just because not every teacher or coach will resonate with you. Giving it a fair shot and seeing the power of it, and so, I mean, that's the first step. And there's different variations of the breath, as we talked about. So finding one that resonates with your body, and obviously, taking it deeper is always suggested. So working privately with someone like us in private sessions can really help you to pinpoint and focus on what you want to move through, versus, say, a group setting where you'll have a really powerful experience, and it just might not be as laser focused, and anywhere in between. There's recorded sessions, there's online sessions, but my first experience was in a small group in person, so the music was loud and the vibration, and it was a really cool first experience for me.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that you bring up, there is a difference between group and private, and pros and cons. One's not better than the other necessarily. And what would you say, though, in terms of well, let me put it, how do I want to say this? The value or the importance of breathing with somebody, with a facilitator, as opposed to, like, as far as I know, Still, the government has put no regulations on breathing or air. Those are still freely accessible for
Yeah,
now.
yeah, for now.
But well, yeah, what do you think? Like, what's the difference? I have my take on it. I really want to hear from you, though.
Yeah. I think it depends on what people are going through. This kind of work can, as you know, can bring up a lot of stuff, right? I'll kick up a lot of dust, as my old singing teacher used to used to say. So, people need to be prepared, and if people are dealing with emotional challenges, or and it's always advised that maybe they have a doctor or a therapist to work with, as well as your breathwork coach or facilitator. I think that's really important. But I think I think people know themselves pretty well. If you've been in the self-help world, or you used to kind of supporting yourself, and you're learning how to navigate some of the trauma and things that come up on your own, I think a group setting could be great, because you're able to go in, process, maybe talk to the facilitator a bit after, and then go home and do some journaling and really let it integrate. If you maybe are new to the world of really digging in deep, I think probably a private would be a pretty good idea, or a really small group where you have access to really, really process your experience, because it can bring up a lot, and it can be confusing, and it can throw Pandora's box sometimes opens up, and it's like, oh, what do we do with this now? It's definitely a layered approach. Every time we breathe, we can open up deeper and deeper and bring up more stuff. So I think the key is having someone be able to be there to support you, to help you process. I've gotten really good at doing that myself, but again, most of us need somebody to check in with. What about you? What are your...
Well, I love what you said. I think all of that's really accurate. And the way I think of it and the way I talk about it is like, one of the things I love about breath is this is and coaching too. It's like it's not a model where, hey, I want you to come and see me every week and pay me every week and sit on my sofa every week and tell me about your problems for the next 10, 20, 30 years. Like,
Yeah.
that's not what we're looking for here. And because breath is so powerful, you can do it on your own. Yes, please do try this on your own. That said, I also feel like, just like you said, it can, what did you say, stir up the hornet's nest? Like, it can really, the way I think of it is, because it's such a powerful way of raising one's vibration, all the parts that are of a lower density vibration, old patterns, beliefs, wounds, traumas, all those things that we maybe haven't been able to feel before, that we've kind of pushed down. Like, when we get this high vibration going, like, those things come up to the surface. And when that happens, a lot of people are like, what do I do now? Right. And that's where, like I think, and I'm curious for your perspective on this. Like, for me, I think the biggest part of my job is to say, it's okay. You're okay. I know that's a lot coming up right now, but you're okay. Just keep breathing. And if you keep breathing, I promise that's going to release, and in its space is going to be a whole new world. Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense. Yeah, it's I like normalizing too, right? Whatever shows up, it's just normalizing. I mean, you and I, we've seen it all. We've experienced it all, most likely from our own breathing. And so I can say with absolute confidence, whatever shows up is normal, and you will get through it. And yeah, I mean, I like to combine some coaching similar to you with the breath. So, we're doing a big check-in, and we can check in at the end and make sure everybody is supported through the process. And yeah, sometimes people say, "Oh God, I thought you said I'm going to, feel great, and I feel more tired. I feel worse the last 3 days after your session." Normal. It's normal. And I usually do preface with that. You may feel great, or you may actually feel worse in some ways, but that's a beautiful thing. It means you're integrating and you're starting to move through. So please be gentle with yourself. Drink lots of water. Have a nice hot bath, and just allow the process. Everybody's at a different place in their life, so. That's why also a series of breathwork sessions is really highly advised, right? One is awesome, and one actually might change your life. It changed my life, one session. Yeah. Imagine if you actually committed to more ongoing sessions.
Yeah, well, and well said. And that's the other part for me. What I usually say to people is like, you absolutely can do this on your own. And
Yeah.
it's good to do a few sessions at least with a facilitator first. One, because yeah, the biggest challenges seem to come up in the beginning. And that's where we need to train ourselves a little bit to say, okay, I can keep breathing, aka I can keep feeling even when there are these challenges, right? And if we can learn
Yes.
that skill to say, oh, it's okay, I can feel something that's uncomfortable and keep breathing, well, then I can handle anything in life, right? Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense. I often say in my teacher training with students is, maybe one of the scariest things in the beginning was somebody who felt like they were having an anxiety attack, right? And luckily I've been doing this a long time. I know I can breathe them through it. And just them breathing through what feels like a panic attack, breathing right in and through it, getting to the other side, which is a place of, whoa, I made it. When they can understand that they can do that with breath, it's incredible, because if they can do that, they can get through pretty much everything with just the breathing process. So yes, it makes complete sense. I look at it like an arc, right? It's this, we move through the resistance. It's going to feel like harder in the beginning. It's everything that we're holding on gets more magnified and I'll say worse or more intense. But that's when you actually don't want to back away. You kind of want to keep going through it to the other side. Now, of course, there are exceptions if it's too much for people, or if they started getting some of the tetany or cramping in their extremities, which we talk about in breath, then maybe for that day they've had enough and we can back away and have them relax. But overall, I think the theme is just pushing a little bit through some of the density to the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicely said. Like when I'm preparing people to breathe, I often say like, hey, here's some of the things that can happen, and here's the emotional release that can happen. And sometimes I get to talk about, yeah, all this stuff that we haven't felt and we pushed away and we buried, and and then people are like, that's gonna come up. Oh no, I'm like, it's okay. You can breathe through it. We're gonna do it together. And you always have control. You can turn down the intensity. That's all right. It's a powerful lesson.
Do you ever bring up? Oh yeah. Go ahead.
No, please.
Well, I was going to say, do you ever? I bring in the opposite, which is, you may not feel anything at all.
Oh, right.
Right. The FOMO. A lot of people have FOMO. Like you said, I'm like, and nothing happened. And sometimes it takes 3 or 4 sessions. So people watching, like, just remember that too. Sometimes 3 or 4 sessions is what it takes to really crack open a little bit. So, don't think one time if you feel nothing or very little that it's not working for you. Yeah,
hugely important distinction. Like it's the old the almond butter jar. Like, sometimes it's like it doesn't seem to move, but that doesn't mean that's not making a difference. And for some of us, like there's been stuff that we've pushed down, like I'm not gonna feel that. And one breathing session is just like, maybe I'll start thinking maybe someday about sort of feeling that if this happens, it's like, okay, now I start to feel a little. And sometimes people feel nothing. I'll tell you one of my favorite stories from breathing when I first started. Like I was so excited. I did this 4-month training, and I mean, I must have breathed myself 150, 200 times, like full sessions in that period.
Wow.
I'd done a practicum where I'd done all these sessions. I'd assisted my teacher in many, many groups. Finally, I was certified and I was out and I was doing sessions with people, and I had this private session. And I remember it was a guy I knew named Tony. We were in Boulder, Colorado, and I was like, I'm like, all right, I'm doing a real session on my own with this guy, and we start breathing. And I had the experience where so many times people had these big cathartic experiences, right? And crying and releasing. And so he's going along, he's breathing, and then he starts laughing. And I'm like, where's the pain? Where's what's going on? And so I'm like trying to coach him, like maybe he's just staying away from it. And I'm helping him, and he's going deeper and he's breathing more. It's quiet for a while, and then he starts laughing like crazy. And and of course it was beautiful. But the story I made about it at the time was like, what did I do wrong? What happened? And I remember I called my teacher up afterwards, and I was like, Judy, like, here's what happened. And then she started laughing. And I was like, everybody's laughing. What's going on? And the lesson I got from that, though, which she helped me to see and really stayed with me, is exactly what you just said. Everybody is getting just what they need when they need it. And it's always a combination of what do you want, what are you ready for, what do you really need, and we don't know. Our job is just to keep showing up, and whether it happens on the second or fourth one doesn't matter so much as the fact that we're present to it.
Thank you for saying that, because I also talked a lot about moving through the blocks of resistance, but sometimes there's a whole hell of a lot of gratitude and love, and we're crying because we're so friggin' connected and happy. So know that, yes, it can also bring out some really beautiful trend, but it's not always this scary, daunting, dark experience, right? Just exactly different every time. That's what the amazing thing about breathwork is. Every time you do it, it's different, and it's very unexpected. And going in with some sort of preconceived idea is not good, because you're always going to get something different.
Yeah.
I love that story. It's good.
This is so fun to talk with you about this stuff, Jay, and really, really valuable for our audience. I so appreciate you being here. And I know that you've got something as a gift for our audience. Would you say what that is?
Yeah, I have a recorded breathwork audio, which I think is wonderful for people, whether you've done breathwork or not. A great place to start. Just lay down at home, put a little blindfold on, and just kind of experience the power of breathwork. I've combined it with some of the Ho'oponopono work, which is the self-love, self-forgiveness. I think it's a beautiful practice for everybody and anybody, no matter where you're at. So yeah, I'd love to share that with people.
That's beautiful. And so how can people access that?
Oh yeah, you could go to my website. It's breatheonit.net/heal. I could type that in, or you could put it in.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll put that on the screen, and let's see if I can put that right into our comments too, I think. Yeah, I can do that. Let's see. And what's, because we've talked a lot about here the value and importance of breathing with a facilitator. Is there anything people should know about breathing on their own?
On their own. Yeah, well, in the audio, I actually talk about some of the potential side effects people can get. So I prepare people, but as you know, numbness and tingling in your hands, feet, sometimes your mouth, claw-like hands, which we call tetany, can happen. It's a bit freaky. It's normal. And then, otherwise it's relatively safe. I mean, we do have some contraindications, which we talk about. And if anybody's going through surgery or any sort of treatments, for illness, you could reach out before doing the audio. But honestly, just listen to your body and go at your own pace. I've never, and none of my teachers in decades have seen anybody get harmed or God forbid, die from breath work. So, it's a safe practice. It can feel a little scary emotionally, but again, go at your own pace, trust yourself. And of course, if people do my audio, I'm always available afterward via email or on social media.
Yeah, well, so that's my next question is, I know you are offering people the experience of breathing with you in various ways. You've got retreats and groups and online and in-person and private sessions. So what's the best way for people to, step up and take advantage of that? How to contact you?
Yeah, thank you. Through my website or social media. By the way, my social media is BreatheOnIt with J. That's Jay. And it depends on where people want to go. If the people are seriously committed to doing some deep work, booking a few privates, I have packages for 3 or 4 sessions. That would probably be the best way to start. But if you're not sure, after your free download, if maybe you just want to try a group class, I have over 40 recorded sessions in my library, which is great. Everyone has a different theme, so you can pick something that resonates with you and just rent one of those classes or do my membership, which is $39 a month. And it's one live webinar with me a month, and then unlimited access to all the recordings. So you can do as much breath work as you want. And so, those are some options. And then, of course, the retreat I do classes out here in Palm Desert. California once a month, and private sessions here and online, and then a retreat. Of course, I'm doing, not of course, but it's our first international retreat, doing breath, yoga, and sound in Costa Rica next June. So lots of options. And then, the big part of my business is certifying people in breathwork, similar, to what you did. And if people are interested in learning more about becoming a facilitator or teacher, that's a whole nother option that I do virtually or in person. So lots of different options for people.
I think we must have had a break in the audio though, because I thought I heard you say that the membership is $39 a month.
That is correct.
That's an incredible value, because I mean, for me, one group breath session is more than double that typically. So for people to have all of that, that's an amazing offer.
Thank you.
And I love that you are training people to become breathwork facilitators, teachers. And one, because that means more breathwork in the world. But two, my experience and why I was a teacher training junkie for so many years with yoga, with breath, with all kinds of certifications. Not so much because I wanted to like get the plaque from my wall or do this thing necessarily, but it's like the fastest way to grow, to go deeper for myself is to, learn on the deepest level, which is what a teacher training or certification program is all about, really, to me. So that's awesome that you're offering people that deep service.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that just evolved naturally as students began to ask me, I want to do what you do. How did you learn? And, so I brought what I learned from a couple of different teachers and expanded on it even more. And yeah, it's been great. It brings me a lot of joy working with other facilitators, coaches, therapists, people who are, really passionate about helping people. It's awesome.
Right on. Jay Bradley, our time is almost up. It's a crying shame. So I'm going to flip things over to ask you the last question, the big question. Are you ready for that?
I'm not sure, but I'll have to say yes.
All right. So the question is this. We have talked about so much great stuff, a lot. You've got so much experience with not just teaching people breathing and vibrant living, but actually living it yourself, right? You're such a vibrant, alive person. If you had to boil it all down and give one piece of advice to people to say, what's the one thing that you could do or not do? What's the one thing that will make the biggest difference in creating a vibrant life? What do you think?
Ooh, I'm going to say, keep saying yes. And what I mean by that is the journey is never done and there's always some work to do. And so just saying yes in terms of expansion, growth, new books, new teachers, being curious and continuing on this journey. So when I'm saying say yes, I'm also suggesting that we also own and acknowledge where we've come. So it's almost like two ideas here, but I think curiosity, I think being curious and continuing our growth, especially if we're not where we want to be in our life. Does that make sense?
Well, it's perfect. And I think those are just two facets of saying yes. It's saying yes to new opportunities and saying yes to this is what's showing up now.
Right. And saying yes, not because, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. No, I'm actually pretty awesome. And I want to feel even better and I want an even better life. So yes, I'm going to try this. I'm curious about that. And, like you said, getting out of our comfort zone a little bit, I think is great. And also kind of being present and being like, yeah, you know what? I'm also in a really good place and I'm grateful for what I have. So it is a fine line, but I think that's been my journey, is learning, growing, physical, emotional, spiritual, right? Becoming better in all ways.
Well, exactly. And that's why I call it the art of vibrant living, because it's not do this is the formula. It's an art. It's a balance. We got to be aware of and feeling all of it all the time with that dedication to saying, I am becoming more vibrant all the time.
I love that. And not one thing is for everybody, right?
Exactly.
Just like breath work.
Yeah. Jay, thank you so much for being with us and for the incredible amount of work that you have done over so many years to become who you are, your own work, and your dedication to supporting others through the work that you do. It makes a huge difference in the world, and I'm grateful that you're here and sharing with us. And to our audience, y'all, please know that you tuning in is important. The knowledge you're getting, the inspiration and the empowerment, what you do with this, your dedication to vibrant living makes a huge difference in the world. It's massive. It changes the world. So I honor you, I credit you, and I thank you for that devotion. And I hope y'all will tune in with us next week. We got another amazing show, and we'll catch you on the flip side, y'all. Aloha.
Thank you.
Mahalo for tuning in to the Art of Vibrant Living show, y'all. I'm Daniel Aaron, and may you live with great vibrancy.